Today I'm going to show you a little bit about how to use these different types of cutters from Jem. A lot of people are afraid to use them because they don't know quite how to use them or what mediums work best in the particular cutters. And I have two different sets here today. I have the baby booty set, and I also have the Jacobean set. And two different mediums work best for these two different sets of cutters, and I'm going to go over that with you today. For the baby booty cutters, for instance, we're going to be using straight satin ice gum paste right out of the bucket. I might add a little bit of Tylose to it to stiffen it up a little bit. For these particular cutters, we're going to be using Carrie Bigger's gum paste recipe for the Cricut. That particular gum paste recipe works best for these cutters because of all the little fine details that are in there and all the thin little pieces. You really need an elastic type gum paste for these to work well. The other tool that's essential to using these cutters successfully is the roller pad. The main thing about these cutters is you're not going to use these in a traditional fashion. When you think about using cutters, most of the time you're going to be rolling out your gum paste or your medium and then taking the cutter and using it this way. That's not the correct way to use a Jem cutter. What you're going to do is you're going to place the cutter upside down into the roller pad and roll your medium over top of that. So to begin making the baby booty, what we're going to do is we're going to cut out the sole first. And on this particular one, I think that we're going to make it black. And what I'm using here is satin ice gum paste that I've colored black and added a little bit of Tylose to give it a little bit of strength. For the sole of the baby booty, we really want to roll out the gum paste to about 1/8 of an inch thick. And if you're using the Wilton rolling pin, that would be the purple guides. And the idea throughout this project is to kind of help your medium dry. So I'm going to powder this as I'm going along. And once I have it rolled to 1/8 of an inch thick, I'm going to lay it on top of the cutter, like that. I kind of give it a little press to make sure that it's seated in there and then it doesn't move around once I roll my rolling pin over it. And all you need to do is take your rolling pin and roll right over top, and that's going to cut the edge for you really nice. So if you see any little fragments around the edge, just go ahead and take a second to clean that up with your finger. And then you're going to take a straight pin and really gently pick up one end of this piece of gum paste and ease it out of the cutter like that. And once you get that started, then real gently just pull it on out the rest of the way. Okay, now the next piece for this is going to be this little wraparound piece right here. And I'm going to make that black as well. That one should not be as thick as the sole. So we're going to roll that out to 1/16 of an inch. And if you're using the little Wilton rolling pin, that's going to be the pink guides right there. Again, don't be afraid to powder this down because we kind of want to help it to dry out a little bit. In other applications, you might not want to introduce this much powder into your gum paste, but here it's fine. Okay, we're going to lay the gum paste over the cutter again. Give it a little press with my finger to make sure it doesn't move around once we roll it on there. Then take your rolling pin and just roll right over top. Remove the excess. Clean up your edge. And then remove it from the cutter. All right, the next piece that I'm going to roll out is this little toe guard piece right here that goes on the end of the tongue. I'm going to make that black as well. So the next piece that we're going to do is this little bumper piece right here, and we're going to do that black as well. This doesn't need to be too bulky, so it's going to be rolled out to a 1/16 of an inch. Now this has a lot of little detail in here, so you really want to make sure that you powder this down really good so that it doesn't stick into the cutter. We'll put the powder side down on top of the cutter, give it a little press, and cut it with the rolling pin. Clean the excess off the edge and remove it from the cutter. All right, now we're going to move on to the other parts of the shoe, which we're going to do a different color. We're going to do this in red. And we're going to start out with the sides of the shoe, because that needs a little bit of time to dry so that it can stand up on its own. So we're going to cut that out first, let it sit aside, and then we're going to go to the tongue. So this is the main portion of the shoe right here. We're going to do that in red. Powder it down a little bit so it doesn't stick in the cutter. Go ahead and cut it. Now the interesting thing about this particular cutter is it has a lot of pieces that need to be removed from it before we take the piece out of the cutter itself. And that would be the air vents right here and the shoelace holes. So we're going to go ahead and remove those pieces before we actually take the piece out of the cutter. If you do this now, it'll be a lot easier than trying to do it after you've taken the piece out of the cutter, and then you won't run the risk of distorting it. Now once you have all the negative pieces removed, then you can go ahead and take this piece out of the cutter. Now since this piece right here has to kind of stand up on its own, you'll want to let this sit a little bit before you start assembling the piece. You don't want to let it sit too long because it will dry and crack on you, but you want to set it long enough so that it will stand up when you go to assemble the shoe. And some different factors will come into play here as far as when this is ready, and you just have to know your environment. It can't be too humid and it can't be too warm. Okay. The last piece that we're going to cut out is the tongue, and we'll do that red as well. And clean up the edge and remove it from the cutter. All right, now that you have all your pieces cut out, we can begin assembling. We're going to start out with the sole. This is the first piece that we cut, and the little wraparound piece here. This is going to go on top of the sole, and we're going to use a little bit of Tylose glue here. And this is a mixture of Tylose powder and water. There's a lot of different variations of the recipe out there, but what I prefer is 1 teaspoon of Tylose per half cup of water. Now if you've never made Tylose glue before, when you go to mix in the Tylose powder into the water, it will be a little bit clumpy and it will be a little bit jelly-like. This is normal. You just have to go back and stir it every 10 or 15 minutes until it's completely dissolved, and it will after about a half an hour or so. This glue is a very strong glue, and the one thing you have to remember when you're using it is if you're gluing together colored pieces, it will pick up the color of whatever you're gluing together, so be careful about that. Now you'll notice I put the glue right around the top edge of this sole, so I'm actually gluing this wraparound piece on the top, not on the side. And this seam, where the two ends are going to meet, should be somewhere along the front of the sole. That's going to get covered up later on, but you want it to be right at the front. And you see by letting this sit a little bit, it's standing up on its own real nice like it's supposed to. And then once you get that glued on there, you just want to go ahead and go all the way around the perimeter and make sure that this wraparound piece has really made contact with the sole. All right, now once you have that in place, the next thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and glue the main part of the shoe in place. And this is going to go inside that wraparound piece and sort of rest on the bottom of the sole, or the top of the sole. So we're going to take a little bit of our glue, and you can put it inside the shoe if you want, or you can put it directly on this piece. I'm going to go ahead and put it on this piece. Don't go too far up because you don't want to see the glue peeking out from above this wraparound piece, but that should be sufficient right there. And then you go ahead and you put it right inside. The main thing to worry about right here is to make sure that these two end pieces, which is the front of the shoe, are somewhat even at the front. If your fingers are too big to get in there, you can use one of these little gum paste tools and just get in there and give it a little press. Make sure that it's glued in there really good. And when you feel that it's attached, just go ahead and leave it like that. Now we're going to work on the tongue. Now this little black piece right here was the little tip that goes on the end of the tongue. That's going to be at the front of the shoe. So we're just going to take a little bit of glue, put on the end there. Now a little bit of this tie-less glue goes a long way. If you use too much of it, you'll find that the pieces that you're trying to glue together will slip and slide around on you, and you don't want to do that. Sometimes you might even want to brush the glue on and then wipe it right back off with your finger. And that's really how strong this glue is, and that's all you need for it to stick to itself. All right, once you have that on there, what we're going to do is we're going to glue this part of it right into the top of there. But we also need to kind of bend it a little bit like that so that it kind of makes the natural shape of the front of the shoe. So we're going to do that, and then once we get it in there, we're going to bend that part of the tongue up and go like that. So again, I'm going to apply the glue to the edge of here. And I have one finger underneath, and I'm kind of guiding it into place there. I'm going to take a little bit of glue and put inside here so that it makes contact with the outer part of the shoe there as well. I'm going to give it a little bit of a press right there. All right, so I'm just going to use a little piece of paper towel just to stick inside there and help this hold its shape until it dries really well. And you can see the shape of the little sneaker coming together here. You notice how I said before you can use your gum paste tool as a helper to kind of shape this the way that you need it shaped. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put the little bumper on the front, which is this piece right here. Now personally, I don't like it to be this long, so I'm going to cut a little bit of it off. So I think that looks a little more natural for the front of a sneaker. We're going to put a little bit of the Tylose glue on the back of here. Remember what I said about wiping off the excess with your finger. And then just put that right on the front. How cute is that? Now the very last thing that this sneaker needs is some laces. And for that I'm going to use straight fondant, no Tylose, no gum paste, but I have worked in a little bit of shortening in there. The reason that I worked in the shortening is because I'm going to use one of these clay extruders, and with such a small tip in the end here, sometimes it's hard to get out. So if you add a little bit of shortening in there, it'll be a lot easier to get it out of the extruder. So I'm just going to take a little bit of the fondant, roll it into a log. And then I'm going to powder it down. If you powder it down, it'll just slide right into the extruder, just like that. And if you worked in enough shortening to it, when you press this end of it, it'll come out nice and smooth on the other end. And I like to extrude this in one continuous piece if I can, and then go back and cut it up into the smaller pieces that I need. Now to do the laces, I'm not going to try to do this like you would think a normal shoelace would be. I'm going to do this in individual pieces, and that way it'll be a lot easier for you to get them in there. If you're having problems getting it into the hole, then you just make the end a little pointy. And you can take a scissor to make it easier for you to get this to the length that you need it. Now that first lace I kind of put straight across there like that. The second one I'm going to crisscross. And you can secure this with a little bit of Tylose glue if you want to. You can make these as tight or as loose as you want to. I'm going to make this one as if someone's just taken it off. So they're going to be a little bit loose. All right, now there's a couple ways that you can finish this off here. If you want to leave your tissue or whatever you put inside for it to dry, you can do that before finishing up the laces. As you go and you put each lace in, you might want to glue the tongue to the inside of the shoe part. Just whatever's working for you at that particular time. I'm going to stop right here and let this dry completely before I put the rest of the laces on. Again, this was the sneaker cutter set from Jem. Jem makes a wide variety of different cutters and different styles. They're all used basically the same way that I demonstrated here with the sneaker, used in the roller pad. Make sure you get the roller pad. These are all available at Sweetwise. Thank you for watching.